तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। One more statement here on this first page, I guess, page number 217. Under the picture of Puja Swami. Om Namo Brahmadibhyah Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyah Vamsharshibhyah Mahadbyah Namo Gurubhyah. So here the Tikakara says, Uktameva Atmanam Mahata Tarkena Vistarato Adhigamaitum. That, as we said in the earlier section, which was dialogue between Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi, there sage Yajnavalkya imparted the knowledge of the self, which is dearest of all. The basic statement is that whatever is dear because the self is dear to me. Or rather, Puja Swamiji modified this a little bit. Because self is not always dear to us. Sometimes we don't like ourselves also. So, to say that the self is always dear to me, perhaps, so what Puja Swami said, that I always love the pleased self. So, we love the pleased self. So whatever is dear to me because of the pleased self. Meaning that whatever pleases me becomes dear to me, because ultimately it is a pleased self that is dear to me, and you make me pleased or happy, then you also become dear to me by being the means of achieving a pleased self. Meaning thereby that Atma is of the nature of happiness, of the nature of love. Vistarata Adhiga. Now the same Atma is now being elaborately explained here in this section. And for doing that, as we say in the morning, there is a little akshayika or an anecdote. So it is described, a very short anecdote. So the first passage says here, Janakam havai deham Yajnavalkyo jagama samene navadishye iti atha yajjanakascha vaideha Yajnavalkyascha agnihotre samudate tasmeha Yajnavalkyo varam dadau saha kama prashnam eva vrave tam asmai dadau tamha samradeva purvaha papracha. So this is Akhyayika, or the anecdote, the circumstance under which this dialogue took place. Janakam Havaideham Yajnavalkya Jagama. This is Sage Yajnavalkya was a very learned saint and he was a Brahmana. It used to be practiced those days of the sages, visiting the courts of the kings who had an appreciation of the knowledge, who they were themselves knowledgeable, they loved the knowledge, and therefore they also loved knowledgeable people. They themselves used to engage in debates with others. So Janaka, King Janaka is well known to be a king who always liked to learn new things. He himself was very learned and encouraged always learned people to visit his court. Yajnavalkya, of course, was a very well-known saint. He had visited the court of King Janaka earlier also. And again, this time, the passage says that Janakam Yajnavalkya Jagam. Yajnavalkya, on his own initiative, approached or reached the court of King Janaka. Janaka is called Vaideha, as we said this morning, because he was the king of the country of Videha, or as well known that he was the one. He was a wise person and he abided in the self such that he lost all identification with the body. Therefore, he was without the body. Videha, the one from whom the idea of identification of Deha has gone away. So thus Janaka also was known as Videha, one who was free from the identification of the body. That's a big thing. That means he was a wise person who had an abiding knowledge of the self. To kings such as that, here Vaideha means the king of the country of Videha. Yajnavalkya Jagama, say Yajnavalkya on his own initiative approached the court of King Janaka. What for? Yoga Kshemartham. Yajnavalkya was a Brahmin and Brahmana, and he had, I guess, a Gurukulam, a number of disciples, and here to support all this. So they were always in need of, resources. And to collect, to get those resources, they used to approach kings such as Janaka. Yoga Kshemartham. Yoga to acquire what you don't have. Kshema to protect what you have for this purpose. So it's very clear that Yajnavalkya approached King Janaka for the sake of yoga and kshema. A typical Brahmana, and so he would expect Janaka to give him what he needed. And as king, he would protect what he had. This time, when he approached King Janaka, then he had decided, I am not going to say anything. Aham kinchidapi navadishyeti. I will not say anything. Very often, maybe, say Yajnavalkya may have approached King Janaka and himself, on his own initiative, started giving a discourse. But this time, see, Yajnavalkya decided that I am not going to say anything. All right. That is what he thought. Asa Janakascha Vaideha Yajnavalkascha Agnihotre Samudate. Now it happened that once before earlier, In some other place, he says Yajnavalkya and King Janaka came together, and apparently there was a discussion about Agnihotra. It is a ritual, that the Grihasthas perform, and between King Janaka and Sri Yajnavalkya there was a discussion about this Agnihotra, and Sri Yajnavalkya was very impressed by the knowledge that King Janaka had about Agnihotra. He was so pleased that Tasmai Yajnavalkya varam dadau. He was pleased with the knowledge of Janaka about this Agnihotra, so on his own he offered a boon to King Janaka, that you can ask what you want. Saha kama prashnam eva vavre. King Janaka, being who he was, what did he choose? So he only chose a question, that please give me the boon that when we meet again, I can ask you a question of my choice. He didn't ask for any worldly things, he just asked for, again, something pertaining to knowledge, that give me the freedom. Because you cannot just ask a question to anybody unless there was a proper background, unless you establish a qualification as a person who can ask question. In every case, we have to establish a qualification. I cannot just, give you a discourse unless I have gained the qualification called adhikaritvam to be able to do that. Even if I did not have the adhikaritvam, I started saying something, you are not obliged to sit here and listen to me. All I am saying is that whenever you perform any interaction with others, we always play a role, and we should have a qualification for playing that role. Sometimes mother tells the child, do this, and he says, I won't do it. In his opinion, the mother has not acquired the role or qualification to tell him, who are you to tell me? So sometimes people ask, why do you tell me? And who are you to tell me? That means that I do not look upon you as the one who is qualified to tell me. What I am saying is that just we should keep this in mind. Whenever we say something, we should recognize, or we should remember that we should acquire the adequate respect from the other person to be able to say whatever we are going to say, including asking a question. For asking a question also, you should have gained a recognition, a qualification that you are capable of, or you are authorized to ask a question, or you're fit to ask a question. And so this time, the passage says that Sri Yajnavalkya approached King Janaka with a note in his mind, decision that I'm not going to say anything. And unless he offers King Janaka, what can I tell you? What would you like to know? Then only Janaka can ask him. So apparently this time, no dialogue would have taken place between King Janaka and Yajnavalkya and King Janaka, because Yajnavalkya thought that he would not say anything, and King Janaka cannot ask a question unless Yajnavalkya permits him. However, as the passage says here, Ataha yad janakaha vaideha yajnaval agnihotre samudate tasmaiha yajnavalkyo varam dadau. That once upon a time in the past, when Sri Yajnavalkya and Janaka happened to be together in a ceremony, and they had a discussion about Agnihotra, a ritual, Sri Yajnavalkya was highly impressed by the knowledge of King Janaka, knowledge of Agnihotra of King Janaka. So in his own he said that, ask for a boon. So thus King Janaka had this one boon standing on his account. He said, okay, I'll ask you whenever I want. So what is the boon that King Janaka accepted? That I'll ask you a question of my choice. What that question is was not the question then, but I'll ask you a question of my choice. So Janaka said, okay, you may do that. Now Yajnavalkya goes with a thinking in his mind that I am not going to say anything. And unless he says to King Janaka, please ask me, Janaka can ask him. Now Janaka, remember that in the past he has given me a boon of asking a question of my choice. So I can ask him a question. See, I'm just describing all of this to say what kind of respect was given to elders and to learned people. In Sanskrit we call it amanya, that there is always a reverence that you have for elder people, for learned people. You just don't talk to the people any way you like. You have to always observe, the boundaries and where you stand. So King Janaka was very conscious about that. But as I said, King Janaka had this one boon in his account, and so he chose to ask that question at this time. Sah kama prashnam eva vrave. Janaka had only chosen to ask a question of his choice. Tam asmai dadau. Sri Yajnavalkya granted that boon to King Janaka at that time to ask a question of a choice. Tam samradeo purva papracha. That was Samrad, the emperor. Purvaha means Purvam. He himself asked the question first. So this is called Akhyayika, the anecdote. The circumstance in which this dialogue took place, and what was the reason for the dialogue to take place? King Janaka asked a question. What prompted him to ask a question? Well, his desire to learn. But at the same time, he had gained also adhikaritvam, the qualification to ask a question. He used that and he asked the question. So next passage says, Yajnavalkya kim jyotirayam purushaha iti aditya jyotis samrat iti hovacha aditya naivayam jyotisha aste palyayate karma kurute vipalyeti iti evameva etat Yajnavalkya Kim He Yajnavalkya Kim Jyotirayam Purushaha. He Yajnavalkya, what serves as a light for this man? Purusha means a person. The Shirah Panyadiman, a person, means a human being possessed of Shirah, the head, hands, etc., that distinguishes human being from all other creatures. That this is the limbs, kind of limbs, and the personality possessed only by the human being. So this person, Shirah Pranyadiman Purushaha. Kim Jyotirayam Purushaha, what serves as a Jyoti or the light for this person, for a human being, possessed of the head and hands and limbs like that. So, meaning human being, that's the idea here. It serves a light for all living beings, but particularly the human being. Then Yajnavalkya replied, Aditya Jyotis Samrat iti hovacha Adityena eva ayam Jyotisha aste palyate karma kurute vipalyeti iti evameva etada Yajnavalkya Aditya Jyoti Samrat. So what serves as a light for this person? Meaning that in what light this person or a common human being performs all his daily activities. The idea is ultimately to impart, to gain the knowledge of Atma or the Self, which is the light of all the lights. And also that it started with Aditya or the sun, because it is well known that sun is different from this body mind sense complex, and therefore the Jyoti or the light that is being asked for is something different from that. This much knowledge is there in King Janaka that the body is not the light which illumines the person, or the mind or the sense organs or this personality is not the light that makes this person conscious, that makes this person perform various things. So what imparts the consciousness to this person, in light of which he performs all his activities? And when Sri Yajna Aditya Jyoti Samrat, hey Samrat, hey Emperor, it is Aditya, the sun is the very light which is in which this human being performs all his activities. So this is the starting point. But by Aditya, what is meant is that Jyoti or the light which imparts consciousness to this person, and because of which this person performs all the activities, is something different from this body mind sense complex. Aditya, of course, is a luminary, but also it is different from this body and the mind, this personality. And therefore, the discussion starts with saying that Aditya Jyoti. So, Aditya eva Jyoti, Aditya Jyoti. Aditya means sun, Jyoti means light. Aditya Jyoti means not the light of the sun. This is a Bahuvrihi compound, Aditya Jyoti. Aditya Jyoti yasya saha Aditya Jyoti. Aditya Jyoti can also mean Adityasya Jyoti, or the light of the sun. But here is the Bahuvrihi compound, where Bahuvrihi is always describes someone other than the mentioned in this samasa. So, Aditya Jyoti is neither Aditya nor Jyoti, someone other than these two. Who is that? This person, the human being, who functions in the light of Aditya, for whom Aditya or the sun serves as a light. In what way is further described. Adityena va ayam jyotisha. So Adityena eva jyotisha am aste. So let's connect this verse correctly. Adityena eva, then ayam is inserted in between. Adityena eva jyotisha. So which is that case? Adityena? Third case. Jyotisha? I'm asking, I'm asking these people. So, Adityana is the third case. Jyotisha is also third case. Of what word? Jyotisha. Very good. So, Adityana Jyotisha. By the light of Aditya, the light of sun, by the light, the third case, I am aste, this person, aste sits. Palyayate performs activities. Palyayate sits, aste sits, palyayate goes out, karma kurute performs his activities, vipalyati comes back. So this is just an ordinary person. Imagine in a village those days, that kind of a Sanskriti, culture. So village culture, and a typical villager in his home. I don't think the electricity those days. And so the only thing that served as a light during the day was the sun. So therefore, that's why this is relevant. You cannot say this even today, that today, right now, we are functioning, performing activities without the sunlight. Although this is sunlight in a way, isn't it? Even the light coming from the bulb also ultimately is sunlight. Is it not so? In what sense? Anyway, so ultimately it is sunlight alone because of which all this carbon is formed, and then that is why in the power stations the electricity, the steam is generated, and that drives the turbines, and that creates electricity. So ultimately today also it is sun only in whose light we are performing these functions, but it may not be very evident because we are performing functions in the light of all these bulbs, and so it may not be very clear. In those days there were no bulbs, and it was very clear that only during the day in the light of sun they will perform all their activities. So it starts from a very simple phenomenon. So what serves as a light for this person to perform his actions? That he stays in the home and then sits there and performs activities, goes out, returns home. Simple life, simple activity. We know that. So the answer is simple. Aditya Jyoti, that it is the light of the sun. Because Aditya Jyoti is the name of the person. Aditya Jyoti, yasya saha Aditya Jyoti, meaning this is a person who is served by the light of sun. Aditya neva Jyotisha, the light of the sun, that aste, this person sits in his home, palyayate, goes out, karma kurute, performs activities, vipalyate, returns back, eating. Evameva etat Yajnavalkya. King Janaka says, yes, Yajnavalkya, that is right. I accept what you say and I understand what you say. That is light of sun alone that all the activities are performed. When Janaka says, Evameva, that is so, that means Janaka accepts that this is a Jyoti of the light, that is Dehadi Vidiriktam. Aditya, the sun, is well known as different from this body, mind, sense complex, and therefore it is some light different from the body, mind, sense complex that in fact enables this person to perform these very activities. Not body is not the light, or sense organs are not the light, any element of this personality is not the light, something outside, something different from this body, mind, sense complex. You're right, Yajnavalkya, that it is a Jyoti of the light other than this complex body, mind, sense complex. Janaka says, no, I don't accept it. Then some other discourse, then some other reason would have to supply. But thank God, Janaka says, I accept that it is some light other than this body, mind, sense complex. So then, further, Astimite Aditye Yajnavalkya Kim Jyotirevayam Purushaite Chandramaha Eva Asya JyotirBhavati Chandramasa Eva Ayam Jyotisha Aste Palyayate Karma Kurute Palyetiti Yomeva etat Yajnavalkya Astamite Aditya. All right, Yajnavalkya, when the sun sets, Kin Jyotirevayam Purushaha. When the sun shines, of course, it is very clear that in light of sun that this person performs all these activities. But when the sun sets, then what? What is the light which enables this person to perform the various activities? Answer is given. Chandramaha eva. Chandramas is the word. In the first case is Chandramaha, Chandramasau. So Chandrama, although it says When Visarga is missing there, missing means there is a elided because Sandhi rules. So it says Chandrama, but what it is Chandramaha evasya jyotihi. Chandramaha, the moon, Chandramas means moon, is the light. How do you say that? Chandramasa evayam jyotisha aste. After the sun has set and the moon has risen, then it is in the light of moon that this person sits in his home. Paljayate, goes out. Karma kurte, performs his activities. Vipalyeti, and returns home. So that's all the resources I had those days. So you can see how this very simple, rustic setup is used here for imparting a very profound message. So Upanishads, these Akhyayikas or these anecdotes are very simple. They describe a very simple environment, very simple atmosphere, very simple event, through which then a very profound knowledge is imparted. Because we must have some kind of basis for saying something. So to say that self is a consciousness, there must be a basis. And this is a basis, so ultimately it leads to, the idea is to ultimately enable him to understand that it is self, the consciousness, that is the Jyoti or that is the light. But if right away it is said, then there will be confusion. How do you say it is consciousness? How do you say it is Atma? I find that during the day it is light of sun in which I perform all the activities, so where is Atma in that? Therefore, it is not said that Atma or the self, the consciousness, is a light in which all the human being or anybody performs activities. It starts with saying that it is the sun in whose light all the activities are performed. So it is very clear. Evameva Yajnavalkya, yes Yajnavalkya, that is so. I understand that it is the light of sun because of which all the activities are performed. Astamite Aditya. He Yajnavalkya, when the sun sets. Kim Jyotirevayam Purusha. Then what it is that serves as light for this person? Chandramaha evasya jyotihi. Hey Janaka, it is Chandramaha, the moon is the light. The moon is what serves as light for this person. How do you say that? Chandramasa evayam jyotisha aste. Chandramasa jyotisha, by the light of moon, I am aste, this person sits. Paljayate, goes out. Karma kurute, performs his activities. Vipalyeti, returns home. Eating. Then Janaka says, Evam eva etad Yajnavalkya. You're right, Yajnavalkya. That at night, it is the light of moon in which all these activities are performed. The next question. Astamite Aditye Yajnavalkya Chandramasi Astamite. Did I miss any passage? No. Here, sorry. On page 4, the top line. Let me say that again. Astamite Aditye Chandramasi Astamite Kim Jyotirevayam Purushaire. Agni eva asya jyotirbhavati Agnina eva ayam jyotisha aste palyate karma kurute vipalyeti iti evametat Yajnavalkya. As our Puja Swami used to say that they never miss anything or don't bypass anything. They keep on saying the same thing every time. You can even just say that the sun and the moon and this and that, then finish with it. But no, every time the same thing is repeated so that it is drilled and it is also stamped in our mind so that it becomes very clear, number one, and that we don't forget it. So, Astamite Aditya Yajnavalkya, he Yajnavalkya, when the sun sets, Chandramasi Astamite, and the moon also sets. So that also has to be said. That when the sun sets, then what's the Jyoti moon? Okay, when the moon sets, but sun also sets and moon also sets. Both of them set. Kim Jyotiravayam Purushayati. Then what serves as light for this person? Agni Vasya Jyotihiti. It is the fire or the torch. In those days, we have this electric torch. Those days, so they had that torch which was the fire. So that's torch. So that's why it's called torch. Now today we call this torch, but that was the torch. And so a person in the torch also, within the home, he goes out also, if necessary, performs activities and returns home in the light of torch. So there is Agni. So Agnirevasya Jyotirbhavati Agnayavayam Purusha Jyotisha Aste Agnina Jyotisha, by the light of fire that this person sits. Palyate goes out. Karma Kurute performs his chores. Vipalyeti iti returns home. Ivameva etad Yajnavalkya. Yes, Yajnavalkya, that is right, I understand and accept that it is the light of fire in which the Vyavahara or the chores are performed when both the sun and the moon have set. Then further, Astamite Aditye Yajnavalkya Chandramasi Astamite Shante Agnau Kim Jyotirevayam Purushayati Vag evasya Jyotirbhavati te Vacha evayam Jyotisha Aste Palyate Karma Kurute Vipalyeti te Tasmad Vai Samrat Api Yatra Swappanirna Vinirjnayate Atha Yatra Vagucharati Upa eva tatra Nyeti iti evameva etat Yajnavalkya. Astamite Aditya, when the sun is set. Chandramasi Astamite, the moon also is set. Shante Agnau, then the torch also has extinguished. Kim Jyotirevayam Puru, then there is no light left. The only lights that they had, the sun and the moon and the fire. So that mantra that is chanted, what is it? Na tatra suryo bhati na chandrataragam neva vidyato bhanti kutoyam agnihi. So these are the lights that are mentioned in that mantra that we are chanting when the priest shows the light before the Lord. Then what is the Jyoti? What's the light? What is it that serves as light for this person? Vag evasya Jyotirbhavati. It is Vag. Vag means it's a speech. Vag can also mean the organ of speech, but here it means the words. Speech can mean two. Which speech can mean the organ of speech, or it can mean the words. So here the word Vag is to be understood in the sense of the words. So words serve as a light. So it is by the light of the words. This person sits there, goes out, performs activities and returns home. So now imagine that it's totally dark. There's no sun, there's no moon, there's no fire also. It is totally dark. And api yatra swaha pani na vinijñāyate. When you cannot even see your own hand, it is so dark. Then also people do perform their activities. They do go out. At that time, vāguccharati, if someone makes a sound, pashvadehe, now it becomes very dark and you want to go home, then you hear the dogs barking. So dogs bark generally at the extremities of a village, and so when the dogs bark, you know that, oh, this is where my village is. Because in the dark, you don't see any direction, and you are here, you hear the barking of the dog, then you know that this is the way I have to go. So that sound serves as a light. Light means not this light, but light that actually helps this person to find his course. So therefore, the word light here is not confined to the conventional light, is that which enables this person to perform his activities. He sits at home, performs his activities. His wife says something, bring that pot. Then this fellow, so goes and brings the pot. So that there is no light. Or when he goes out, then as I say, then he hears some sound, like familiar sound, barking of a dog. Then he knows that this is the direction which my village is. So when it's pitch dark, this is how you have to find your way, and people used to do that. Tasmad vi samrād api yatra svapānihi na vinijñāyate. Hey Samrad, hey Emperor, when you do not see even your own hand, it is so dark, pitch dark, Yatra vāguccharati pashvade, that time some animal, such as dog, barks, then you know this is where my village is. Yatra vāguccharati upa eva tatra upanyeti. Here this, if you see the passage, atha yatra vāguccharati. In the fifth passage, the second line, last fiver, yatra svaha pani na vinijñāyate. Svapani means one's own hand also when one does not see, the situation is too pitch dark, when one does not see even one's own hand. At that time when something makes sound like a dog barks, upa eva tatra nyeti, the word is upanyeti. So sometimes in the Vedic style that the prefix is separated from the verb. So nyeti is the verb and upa is the prefix. Upanyeti should have been the word, but upa and neti are separated. In between, a couple of words are inserted. So yatra vāguccharati upa eva tatra nyeti. So eva and tatra are the two words that are inserted between upa and nyeti. You understand? And those who understand Sanskrit a little bit, then they will know. So upanyeti, that's why it doesn't matter. But nyeti, upanyeti, upa is the prefix, nyeti is the verb, upanyeti means he goes, approaches. Upa means samipye, goes near there. Evameta Yagnivalkya, that is right. So first Jyoti is Aditya, second Jyoti is Chandramaha, third Jyoti is Vag, Fourth Jyoti is fire. Third is fire. Fourth is Vag. Fifth is speech. This is what we discuss. Sound is the speech. So in the pitch dark then, when you hear the sound of barking or something, then you know in that direction you have to go. So when no other Jyoti is available, then the sound serves as a light. This is all during waking state. Etavatayo vyavahara, vyavahartu, the vyavahara or the interaction that took place so far is all by the personality, the body, mind, sense complex of this person. But then similar, the kind of interaction or the kind of transaction that takes place, that a person is at home and the person goes out, person performs activity, person comes home. So this is the kind of transaction that takes place during the waking state. Does a similar transaction take place elsewhere? In the dream. In the dream also a similar transaction takes place. Now this is important. This is exactly what Sage Yajnavalkya wants to lead Janaka to. That when none of these Jyoti, none of these luminaries are there, then also we find that this transaction takes place. And it is for King Janaka to recognize that this transaction takes place in the state of dream, when none of these lights is there. And so then next, Swapnadavapi Bandhu Samagamadi Karya Darshanat. That similar transaction takes place in the dream also. So this question could have been asked about the waking state or about the dream state also. In the dream also, there is sun and there is moon and there is fire, and these similar entities are present in the dream also. Sort of, it is the dream sun, dream moon, dream fire, dream speech. But then this sun, this moon, this fire, this speech, none of them is there in the dream state. In the dream state, even though we feel that there is a sun, or there is a moon, or there is fire, and we find ourselves performing similar activities in dream also, not even recognizing that we are in dream, because while we are dreaming we think that it's a real world. While we are in dream we do not recognize that this is dream. It's only when we wake up that we realize that all that was dream. In the dream I won a lottery of $1 million, now $34 million and so forth. I won a lottery and I was so overjoyed. And I screamed in joy and I just woke up. I had not a penny in my hand or my pocket. Then I realized all this happened in a dream. But that time I did not know that this is a dream. I was as happy I would have been had I won the lottery in the waking state, in a dream also. I was as happy as that. So in a dream we do not know that we are dreaming. Therefore, all the activities or transactions that take place in a dream look as real to us as they look in the waking state. But in the dream there is no sun. Not this sun is not there. This moon is not there. This fire is not there. This speech is not there. And still a similar transaction takes place in dream also. So that is what now Sage Yajnavalkya asks of King Janaka, or Janaka asks of Yajnavalkya. Astamite aditye Yajnavalkya Chandramasi Astamite Shante Agnau Shantayam Vachi Kim Jyotirevayam Purusha iti. Astamite Aditye, when the sun is set. Chandramasi Astamite, the moon also is set. Shante Agnau, the fire also is extinguished. Shantayam Vachi, when the speech also has quietened. So very consistently, because if one is missed, then you may say, oh, then the moon is shining. So when sun is not shining, moon is not shining, fire also is extinguished, the speech also is not there. Then also Vyavahara takes place. Does it take place? There is no sun, there is no moon, there is no fire, there is no speech, and still you stay home, you go out, perform activities, return home. Does it happen? Where? In the dream. That King Janaka had to recognize. Yajnavalkya did not mention the word dream, he just said, when the sun is not there, moon is not there, fire is not there, speech is not there, then what's the light in which this person stays home, performs activities, goes out, does things, then comes home? So when Yajnavalkya asks this question, then Janaka has to recognize that this is a question about not waking state. All the lights that are available in waking state, the sun, the moon, the fire and speech. Astamite aditye, when the sun is set. Chandramasi astamite, when the moon is set. Shante agnau, when the fire is extinguished. Shantayam vachi, when the speech is quiet. So this is a description of what state now? It cannot be the description of the waking state, because in waking state at least the speech is there even when other lights are not there. In the waking state, in absence of all other lights, when you perform your activities, then the light is of the words or speech, then only you can find the direction and you can do what is needed to be done. When all these lights are not there and still this Vyavahara takes place, Kim Jyotirevayam Purusha, then what is it that serves as a light for this person? So Janaka has to recognize that this is a question about dream. Meaning that sage Yajnavalkya is describing the dream state when it describes like this. Astamite aditya, when the sun is set. Chandramasi astamite, when the moon is set. Shante agano, when the fire is extinguished. Shantayam vachi, when the speech also is quiet. And still the person goes out, performs activities and returns home. When would that happen? When would that happen? That sun is not shining, moon also is not shining, fire also is not there, speech also is not there, and still this perform, sits in his home, goes out, performs activities, returns home. When would that be? In the dream. So King Janaka has to recognize that this is a question about dream, because Yajnavalkya did not use the word dream. He just described this and says, when none of these lights is there and still the Vyavahara takes place, King Janaka had to recognize that sage Yajnavalkya is asking about dream, because in dream also a similar transaction takes place as it takes place in the waking state without the conventional lights. And this is where Yajnavalkya would draw Janaka to, because then also there is a light. In dream also, when the sun and the moon and the fire and the speech, all these conventional lights are absent, then what is the light? Still Vyavahara takes place, so there must be a light then also. So what's the light? Atma evasya JyotirBhavati iti. It is Atma, or the self, or the consciousness that serves as a light. So what light illumines the dream world? Not the sun, not the waking sun, not the waking moon, not the waking fire, not the waking speech, None of these lights are there in the dream, and still the Vyavahara takes place. So what's the light? Atmanaya. Then there is still the light because we perform the same kind of Vyavahara. In the dream also, a person sits at home, goes out, performs activities, returns home. Is it not so? In the dream also. When none of these conventional lights is available and still the Vyavahara is performed, so what is that light? Well, Atma evasya JyotirBhavati iti. King Janaka says, Atma is the very light. Atma is that in light of which all the Vyavahara is performed in the dream. Atmaneva Jyotisha, it is in the light of the self, or the consciousness. I am aste, palyayate, karma kurute. This person sits there, goes out, performs activities, returns home. So, the purpose of the whole dialogue was to lead King Janaka to Atma, or the self. So, this is how. Then we'll continue the further discussion. But you can see how, in a very intelligent manner, Sri Yajnavalkya inspired Janaka also and set the whole process of thinking in mind of Janaka, so that on his own he will arrive at this. So teacher in fact doesn't have to give all the answers to students. He makes the students think and also guides them so that the answer comes in their own mind. And when you find answer in your own mind, then you have the joy of knowledge or realization, they call it. Whatever the realization, maybe just a part, but then you have the same joy of knowledge. And such, when you have discovered it, then you know exactly what it is. When the teacher tells us, then we may understand all that, but we may or may not be clearly understand clearly, and so I think I understand, but it may not be so. But when I discover myself, then I am very sure of what it is. Therefore, Sri Yajnavalkya guided Janaka. For him, Janaka to discover in his own by himself, what is the Jyoti of the light in which all the Vyavahara is performed in the dream state. We'll continue. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamada Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashyakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.